Hey everybody, and welcome back. I can see you guys are loving the app, so I am inspired to play a little bit of a game where I find the best photos that people have uploaded and share them with the audience. The more interesting and the more creative, the better. And to start us off, I want to share a few of my quick favorites. I see Noel from the Center for Life is having a bit of a dance with a skeleton. That's wonderfully creative. Also, there's a running theme of men wearing sort of astronauts' helmets. I see Peter from the Netherlands is living his best life in a helmet there. And also Marie from the UK, kind of, that's a choice, being surrounded by some blue balls. Keep them coming and add those funny photos, and I'll come to you throughout the day. Now, for our next session, we're about to get interactive again as we welcome Shivani from the Ecsite Gamers. Shivani, how are you?
Very well, Brad. How are you?
I'm a little stressed, but so far so good. Now tell me, Shivani, how are things in India?
Things are good. They're starting to open up, and slowly I'm hoping that as we go back to life as normal, cases will stay contained and sort of public spaces can open up. What about in London?
We just kind of make out things are good, but it seems to change on a daily basis. Well, look, we love the fact that you've joined us all the way from India. Is it some crazy hour for you over there?
Thankfully not. It's the middle of the afternoon, so very civilized. About 4 o'clock.
Perfect. Well, look, I'm going to hand over to you as we get into our special gaming session. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Brad. All right, everyone, welcome to Lies Wanted, the game show where you have to sift through the fake news and find what is real. Today in the world, there are all kinds of stories floating around, and we've got 4 sets of objects to show you and 3 experts who are each going to tell you a different story about each of the objects. Your job as the Ecsite experts is to spot the liars and find the truth. So without any further ado, I'm going to call up our first team, which is Team GameLab. And I'm going to show you the object that they've brought for us to have a look at. So it's some kind of crank, and it's attached to a wheel with 6 holes on it. If you want to take a closer look at it, the link to the images should be below the screen. So I wonder what this is. We've got Ran, who's our first expert from Team GameLab. We're just waiting for his other 2 team members to appear. I'm very, very curious about these handles that are going on at the bottom. Hi, Malka. Lovely to see you.
Hey.
Now just waiting for Claudia, I think, and then we can get started in trying to identify this object. So whilst we're waiting for Claudia, Ran, would you like to just introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and why you are an expert, and explaining to us what this object is?
Absolutely. Thank you, Shivani. So my name is Ran. I'm talking to you from not so sunny London, but we're hopeful for the weekend. Mm-hmm. I'm a lecturer at the University of Southampton, and my focus is on research and development of escape rooms and theater, science theater, and also research learning in museums. So without further ado, you can see my colleague Claudia. Claudia is a very interesting and exciting person, and she has lots of ideas and lots of really interesting objects. For example, the one you see here. So we chose to show you one of Claudia's objects, but that does not mean that Claudia will be telling the truth. Let me warn you. So let me tell you what this object is. As you can see, it's a reel. So Claudia was helping her parents clean the attic, and she found this film reel that you saw, and it's used to sort of advance and move films, the old style, the old mechanical style, and sorry for the pronunciation, the film Nuovo Cinema Paradiso, you might have seen. So yeah, that's all I can tell you for the moment, and I will pass on to the next speaker.
Sounds pretty plausible to me, Ran. I'm convinced, but I want to hear what Claudia has to say, given that you're saying it's her object. So would you like to tell us where you're coming from and what you think this very strange looking object is? Ooh, Claudia seems lost in thought.
Sorry. I thought you said Malka.
No,
yes,
Claudia.
Yes, sorry.
Would you like to tell us what this wonderful object is?
Of course. Well, first I have to introduce myself.
Yes.
That's because I need to talk about the object. I'm from Italy. I'm speaking from Viareggio, which is near Pisa, and I work with kids. I mix art and science, especially circus and science. And I've been asked to do a workshop for a film school. They asked me to explain the science of early cinema. So I found this object in my attic, and I thought it was perfect because I will use it to show the passage of light from movie slits. As we already know, light passing through narrow slits creates an interference pattern, and in cinema it was possible to take pictures in rapid succession. So we will test it with a torch in front of it and images on the back. I tried it, it works perfectly.
Interesting. I think that could be correct. Ecsite audience, what do you reckon? Could this be a teaching tool? We're going to hear the last story about this wonderful object from Malka. Malka, where are you coming from and what do you think it is?
Okay, my name is Malka Yayon. I come from the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel. And Ran and I and Claudia share a common passion to teaching unconventional ways, such as chemical escape rooms and clever demonstrations, showmanship for education. And I'm the eldest and wisest. So the group has given me the honor to tell you the truth, okay? Claudia's boyfriend found this object in his parents' house. His family had a textile factory, and this object was hidden there. It was used to rewind the perforated ribbons of knitting machines. He really likes the object, to keep this object as a childhood memory.
Interesting. Those are three very, very different stories. The poll below is open. So whilst we're getting the next team up and looking at the next object, Ecsite experts, have your vote. I will be announcing what the real stories were at the end of the show. And so without further ado, I'd like to bring up the next team, which is Team Dharohar. And they are going to show you, or they're going to tell you something about this very strange looking wooden contraption. To be honest, I'm quite confused about how big this thing is. It feels like it could be massive, but it could also be something tiny that you fit in your hand. And so we've got Swati here and waiting for her colleagues Rohit and Anirudh. And they're going to try and tell us something about this strange sculptural object. As you can see, it's got quite a structure at one end and then a hole, it seems, in the ground. So, hi Swati, how are you?
Hi Shivani, I'm doing good. How are you?
Fabulous. So where have you come to us from? Where are you speaking from?
Okay, my name is Swati and I work in Dharohar along with Shivani, and I work as a HR person there. I'm talking from Udaipur, Rajasthan, India.
Oh, interesting. All right, and do you want to tell us what you think this very strange object is?
Yes, I would love to, but I would rather give a chance to Anirudh to introduce himself first.
All right, Anirudh, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Anirudh. I'm from India, and I work with Shivani and Swati at an organization called Dharohar, which I'm thrilled to be a part of. And here comes Rohit sir.
Right. Hi, Rohit. Why don't you introduce yourself and kick us off with your story about this object?
Okay. So hi, my name is Rohit Jani, and I work for Dharohar. I am right now calling from Udaipur, Rajasthan, a very pretty city, and very touristic location as well. As some of you must be knowing, Dharohar is a non-profit organization, and we basically develop volunteering programs for businesses, which gets delivered in the education field, in schools with little kids, and it's pretty exciting. So coming to the subject, the machine that you are seeing, it's basically coming from the Indus Valley civilization, where people used to make pots out of these machines. So basically, this machine, pots of bronze and copper, because the use of bronze and copper was pretty, it just started by then, and this machine uses the principle of levers basically to multiply the force, to ram the thin sheet of metal, and so that it gets the shape of a pot, what we call today, or what we understand today, like the forming process. So this is the ancient forming process, where you could change the tool. Maybe you are making glass, or maybe you are making a pot, or something like that. And this was very laborious process, used to be done by poor women in the community, because the rich already had access to the cast metal, the cast utensils or something like that. I know that these 5 of these machines are being restored by the Archaeological Survey of India, and one of them is in display at the Metallurgical History Museum in Khetri, where one of the oldest copper smelter is still running.
Interesting. I'm not sure if I think that could really be true, but we're gonna wait and see what our audience thinks. Anirudh, what do you think this is?
Actually, Shivani, this is a holy percussion instrument that is used by a small tribe from the Nilgiris in India, and they use this instrument to appease the rain gods. They do this rain dance with this instrument that goes on for a week, and they do it in the peak summers to help bring the monsoons. The men from the tribe gather and dance in a fixed geometric form around this instrument, and the women of the tribe are not allowed to be present, sadly. A metal plate is fixed inside the hole, which is a metal plate is fixed inside the hole, but it is loose enough so it vibrates. The head priest would let the lever fall, and that creates the ancient sound. The metal plate and the sound, therefore the sound, it changes. They would change it depending on the weather that year, and the decision of which metal plate to be used would be made by the tribe elders. And how I know this about this object from my uncle, who's actually an anthropologist, and he has done a lot of research on the people from the Nilgiris. So that's how I know it.
Oh, wow. Anirudh, you seem to have quite a lot of details on this machine. I'm kind of getting a little convinced by you, but I want to hear what Swati says, because I'm not liking this no women allowed situation. Swati, what is this?
Yes. Oh, guys, what are you both saying? I totally disagree with both of you, because this is the one of the oldest, traditional tool used earlier and still in some part of India to, remove the husk from the grains pulses, especially from the rice, because in older time we don't have those threshing and harvesting machines earlier. And I have also grown up looking at my grandmother when we and my cousins used to spend our those fabulous summer vacation at our farmhouse. We used to see those tools, and my grandmother used to ask with cousins to sit on the other side, which we can see in the picture, to sit at the other side, and then in the hole they put the grains, and then it goes ups and down like a seesaw. And me and my cousins were utilized in a good way to play at the same time, and elders works are also done. So it was really a fun for us, and we enjoyed like a seesaw at that time.
I don't know, Swati. I'm not convinced. I've never seen any kind of laborious work like threshing become as fun as having a seesaw. I wish it was true, but I'm not convinced. I guess we're going to have to wait and see. Well, thank you, Team Dharohar, for these 3 very, very different stories. We're going to see who was telling the truth at the end. But before that, we've got 2 more objects for you. And then the next is from Team Technopolis. Ooh, gosh, someone thought that was a welding machine from the 18th century. I didn't even know they had welding in the 18th century. And so here I present you object number 3 as we wait for Team Technopolis, which is the famous jewel beetle that they have in their collection. As you can see, it's got quite a crazy shiny color. And I think Stefan and his colleagues are going to give us 3 different explanations for what's so special about this beetle. All right, so whilst we wait for your colleague, Stefan, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us why you think this jewel beetle is so special and what everyone should know about it?
Yes. So I am Stefan, the CEO of Technopolis, and we have a special relationship with this beetle, and I'll tell you why. It's not the reason I picked it, but it's part of an art installation in the palace, the Royal Palace in Brussels. And the whole ceiling is covered with thousands of them. And each year we hold a pop-up exhibition, a science exhibition in the palace. So if you're ever in the summer in Brussels and we can go out again, you should come and visit it. But that's not the reason I picked it. I'm a chemical engineer, and research, when they looked at why this beetle has such beautiful colors, has shown that the pigments in the beetle is actually the first form of natural nanoparticles. And the ensuing research after these nanoparticles led to the whole field of nanoparticles. So that's why I like it, because it was nature that gave us this present of this very small chemistry. And we're glad that that it inspired us, and we can inspire millions of people with it.
That sounds pretty plausible given how big nanotechnology has become recently. But I want to give your colleagues a chance to have their say. I mean, I know you're the boss, but that doesn't mean you're always right. Dennis, what do you reckon?
Well, Stefan told us a very nice story, but contrary to what Stefan told us, the beetle's beautiful colors actually have a different origin. Well, the jewel beetle, as Marjolein can show us, she has the real object.
She has the actual one. Wow.
Piece from the palace. Yeah, that's the one of the many thousands. But that jewel beetle is a prime example of the phenomenon of iridescence. The colors you can see aren't actually the result of pigments, but by an interference of light by multiple layers of reflective lattice-like structures called photonic crystals. Now, these crystals block out certain frequencies of light and let through others. And the effect produces, as you can see if you watch the beetle very closely, are bright metallic colors. Now, similar to an analog shell or holographic trading cards, iridescent objects change color depending on the angle from which they're viewed. So quite often they create a flashy rainbow-like effect, which is pretty cool if you look at it in real life.
Oh wow, that sounds pretty cool. But I want to hear what Marjolein has to say, because she's the one with the beetle, to be honest. What do you think, Marjolein?
Yeah, of course, they're both wrong. The reason we picked the jewel beetle as our object is the fact that its proportions are a near perfect approximation of the golden ratio. So that basically you find a ratio between the segments that is very close to 1.62. Now, this golden ratio is said to represent perfect beauty. It inspired great mathematicians, like, for example, Fibonacci, but also architects. So you can find the golden ratio in the Parthenon. Artists. So Leonardo da Vinci was a big fan of the golden ratio, and he used it in his drawing of the Vitruvian Man. Now, you cannot only find this golden ratio in man-made objects, but also in nature. So it is a very special property of this type of beetle, because research has shown that the closer all segments of its body approach the golden ratio, the more reproductive success it has. So we were inspired by this perfect beetle, and we used its ratio in the design of our landmark tower that you can admire when you visit the Technopolis Science Center.
Interesting. No, I'm not sure I'm seeing the similarities, but let's see what the Ecsite experts think. Thank you so much, Team Technopolis. Now I've got the very last team, which is Team HKD, and they have got, I think, probably the weirdest object of this lot. This very strange looking machine, and you can see there's sort of some reels on spools and spindles. You've got some kind of light source up at the top, and I'm very curious to find out what in the world this is. Hi Mia, how are you doing?
Thank you, Ronnie. I'm very well. How are you?
Fabulous. Whilst we wait for your other two colleagues, would you like to introduce yourself and try and tell us what this very strange object is?
Of course. So I am Mia Pollack. I work with HKD in Margate. at the seaside, where we design museums, science centres, galleries, heritage sites and more. And much of my work relates to working with collections.
Ah, interesting. And what would you say this is?
Okay, so this machine was hacked into existence by a team working to digitize ancient Sanskrit manuscripts that are rapidly being lost all over India. It came into being when they looked for machines to scan these films on the open market and were horrified to see that they cost 2.5 million rupees. Yeah.
Okay.
So they set
That's
themselves
funny.
a challenge. It is. So they set themselves a challenge to do it at a quarter of the price and succeeded in just 4 months. They're hoping that this machine will allow for the largest digital corpus of Sanskrit manuscripts in the world.
Wow. Okay. That sounds pretty dodgy to me. I can't believe that they would do it in the quarter of the cost and
Clever
that
people.
quickly.
Clever people.
So no, I think Eve's got something to tell us. I'd like to know what you think this is, Eve. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us the true story behind this object?
I am Eve Catherine. I am a social anthropologist based in Bristol. And what you've just heard from me is complete nonsense. And I think you'll find that this object finds its roots in television. You see, Quatermass was a groundbreaking sci-fi series filmed in 1953 at the original BBC studios at Alexandra Palace in London. The BBC planned to telerecord each episode onto 35mm film, which was a relatively new process that allowed for the preservation of live TV broadcasts. However, these original film reels were lost for many years. Thankfully, the reels from the first 2 episodes were recently discovered during the renovation of Alexandra Palace, which is going to reopen as the Museum of Broadcast Television later this year. A technician and Quatermass fan built this machine so the original footage could be reclaimed. It's being used by the BBC and the curators working on the museum to convert the original film reels into modern formats that we can still view and access now. So once this work is complete, the original reels will be on display at the museum, which will also include scripts and props from later sci-fi series such as Quatermass and the other series that it influenced, like Doctor Who.
Oh, interesting. You've got a lot of details on that, Eve. But I don't know. I'm a bit confused now. I'm going to leave it to the audience. Well, the final player in our game today is Rick. Rick, do you think Eve and Mia are telling us the truth about the strange-looking contraption?
Well, obviously not, because I mean this actually has a direct personal connection for me, and it's actually linked to Bletchley Park in the UK, which was the home of British code breaking efforts in the Second World War, and also linked to my father, who was a wireless operator in the Navy at that time. As you may know, the famous Enigma machine and the code breaking analyst at Bletchley were kept secret for many years after the war, and the story only became sort of well known quite recently. And the link to this machine and to my father is that the continued efforts after the war to record and miniaturize the huge amount of secret data was undertaken at Hanslope Park, another country house about 10 miles from Bletchley. And my father helped in the recording of all the handwritten cards onto microfiche film. When he retired, the film recorder and his Morse code key was given to the newly opened Bletchley Park Museum, which I would see much more credible than any other version of that story.
Interesting. Well, those are 3 very convincing stories. I'm quite confused. Thank you very much, Team HKD, for trying to confound us. Now, all that remains is figuring out who was telling the truth. So it seems that the Ecsite experts think that Ran was telling the truth, and this is a cable reel for films. And I am very sorry to announce that the liars have hoodwinked us. The true story actually came from Malka. This strange-looking machine is actually used to rewind perforated ribbons from a knitting machine. Who would have thought? Let's see if we did better on the wooden lever. Ooh, the wooden lever was a close run thing, with the rice thresher and the utensil maker getting 35 and 26 votes each. It seems like more people think we're all liars, though. And I have to say, this time round, Ecsite experts, you did well. You unearthed the truth. This is used, and it's actually still used today, to thresh rice and pulses in certain places. So well done, Ecsite experts. Ooh, okay. It seems Team Technopolis were the least successful at confusing us with their lies. This is indeed an iridescent beetle. And finally, Eve, it sounds like you have got perfect liar credentials because you convinced so many people that this is a machine to rewatch the reels of Quatermass. In fact, Mia, with her least popular story, was telling the truth. This is being used in Udaipur, in fact, to digitize Sanskrit manuscripts and microreels. So it seems that the Ecsite experts and our liars are on equal footing. I'm going to hand over back to Brad. Thank you for playing, and we're going to be playing on Instagram if you want to join us.
Shivani, thank you so much. And I kind of have three things to say to you. The first is you guys are such an international bunch, and it kind of almost made me feel really emotional that this community really does spread all over the world. The second's not so great. You guys are a bunch of liars.
Only to help you spot fake news. This was in the interest of public, knowledge.
And look, the third thing I wanted to say, if next year we're in this online world again, you are the absolute potential new future host because you did an amazing job at killing time and bringing people in and doing all the things you had to do. So thank you so much, Shivani. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you to the Ecsite gamers. That was perfect.
Thank you so much.
Now, Dorothy, where are you? I haven't seen you for a really long time.
Yeah, you're right, Brad. Brad, but to be honest, I'm getting quite hungry, And before we pause for lunch break, I have been inspired by the gamers, and I have an object on my own to show you. So now, dear audience, can you guess what this is? Please put your guesses in the chat, please.
Now, Dorothy, I know that we need to come back from our lunch break at 2:20 Central European time. So if you're like me in the UK, you need to think about what time zone you're in. But we're coming back at 2:20 Central European time precisely. Now, tell me, what is coming up after lunch?
We have a special welcome from Catherine Franche, Executive Director of Ecsite, and a panel session on crisis as a catalyst. We'll also have two panels and a tinkering session this afternoon. So if you'd like to socialize during lunch, use the Ecsite app to find and meet other attendees. And now, bon appetit, and see you again at 2:20. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a great lunch.